Geeks at the Nerd Table review of Rings of Power, mid-season review of Season 2. Here we go. All right, on the panel tonight, I don't just have myself. I get to talk to another one of the geeks. We got George on with us.
What's good? What's good?
What's up?
Not much, man.
Yeah. So, Rings of Power. You've all gotten my little Season 1 review. What did you feel about Season 1?
So was it different for me? Yeah. Was it good though? Sure. I'm not mad at it. It wasn't a bad show. It is different from the obvious Tolkien I guess legend that we have. But when something is that good, I don't care. Like, it actually was good. It was great seeing the backstory of how everything led up to what we got to, and was it a Fellowship of the Ring, The Hobbit, all that stuff.
Yep.
So it was great to see that. Plus to find out that there's the I guess the beginnings of some of these civilizations. Like we see what is it? The hobbits. Before there's even hobbits.
Before they're
They call it, they're called half-foots or something like that, right?
Yeah.
And they're nomads. You know what I mean? These guys are free roaming Middle Earth without a home. We always knew them as, hey, they were from the Shire. But come to find out, they're looking for the Shire. They never got to the Shire yet. So I think that's a big thing with it, that I was kind of like, oh, this is different. I like that. And then coming into how wizards come into the world, like they fly down in freaking fireballs. Like, come on, that's kind of cool.
Right.
You know what I mean? I've seen that scene where it's just kind of like, and they all just kind of come through it. It's kind of crazy. But yeah, I think I'm not mad at the show. Looking at Numenor, first of all, Numenor is always been one of those things that I've always wanted to be like. The way that they spoke about it, Numenor was this grand civilization. Partially built by the elves, and man, it was the conjunction of those two civilizations that made something, and they made Numenor. And it's great to see that there's still people that are totally okay with it, and then you got B, where people are kind of like, no, we're men, we take it, we took over Numenor, it's ours. You know what I mean? We don't need help from the elves, we can do things ourselves, which is the pride of man, and it really shows the downfall of men at that point. You know what I mean? So overall, season 1, I thought it was a great season. The not even cliffhanger, the little spiral at the end there, finding out who Sauron was. I was like, wait, I like this guy though. I like the big bad of the Lord of the Rings trilogy was a cool dude.
I was so confused with that too. Like sitting there thinking, like, all right, who is this dude? Where does he fall? We have never heard tide nor tail of him and his story and like where he falls in line. I was like, are they coming up with something out of the blue? And then the reveal was just like, oh.
And then even finding out that he had, well, not to say he actually was accepted by the orcs right off the bat. They're like, yo, you're a dark elf. Okay, essentially. Why should we follow you when I have an Uruk, which is also kind of dope because the first Uruk is half elf, half orc. And it was nice to see that they're not the Uruk-hai that we've seen in what was it, Two Towers, where they're like these big, strong looking dudes. Like, no, the first Uruk was a half breed essentially, and this half breed was their leader only because he can go out during daylight. You know what I mean? Like he was the only one that can venture off during the day while all of them had to hide during the daylight, or if there was smoke or some type of darkness, then they were able to free roam. But this guy was like, I can do it. And that's why they all looked up to him. And the fact that he was like, even though he's a half breed, he's still like, yo, you guys are family and we're going to make a nation of ourselves. And essentially Mordor came into being, which was kind of dope to see too, because it wasn't always called Mordor, it was called the Southlands. I was always under the impression that the Southlands was like Rohan, the way that it kind of like was portrayed and stuff like that. Very lush greenery.
Interesting.
Yeah, I kind of looked over the map again and I was like, no, that's not even Rohan. And so I'm like, is it Gondor? I'm like thinking it was Gondor because it was like right there. It's like No, it's literally Mordor. So the Southlands was Mordor. So it was originally inhabited by this group of men and
Mhm.
essentially taken over by orcs, and that's how Mordor came into being. It was never from the get go. This is Mordor, which was
Yeah,
interesting to see that.
I always thought that the Southlands was actually further south, even past Mordor, because
Oh, interesting.
in the when we go to the original trilogy, when we go to Lord of the Rings, they talk about the people from what's it the east and
Hmm.
the Southland
Hmm.
people,
Oh, the
like the
ones that were
people
in the
from the
red and
south
black
and from
turban
the
stuff.
east. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
they're supposed to be from the east, I think, and the
Yeah, those
ones that
guys.
bring the war elves are supposed to be from the south.
Hmm.
So
Okay.
maybe it's this like just kind of misnomer of like Southlands, but like it's actually further south.
Yeah.
Or we replace Southlands with like, no, they're the Southlanders now because
Hmm.
the Southlands have become Mordor. Because it's an entire like should be like 1,000 years or so.
Yeah, it's roughly 1,000 years
So
from the Lord of the Rings trilogy, even up to the
yeah,
Hobbit, really. Um,
exactly.
it's the
So
end of the second age,
yeah,
end of this, yeah,
end of the second age. Yeah.
right before the third age, and I think the third
Mhm.
age started right after the war of that
Yes,
second
I
age.
believe so.
So we're
Yeah.
in that like maybe good couple 100 years, if that time frame.
Hmm.
Um, so with all the characters, which is dope, and then just to see even some of the characters. I mean, we seen Galadriel, which was kind of odd for me. That was the only thing I thought was a little weird. I always thought of Galadriel as a very elegant, noble elf. You know what I mean? Very stern, very like I don't know. She had like a regal feel. Where this one is
Yes.
like, nah,
Yes.
bro, I'm a hardball. I'm gonna go ahead and kill Sauron because he killed my brother, which is great. I think that's cool, but I feel like that change up for me was a little weird. I was always thinking that Galadriel was more of like a witch, but I think that probably came down during the line after she got her ring and she started
Hmm.
developing these kind of like visions and all this other stuff. So that could have came down. Like, remember, we're talking thousands of years. She could have changed to that thousands of years later, which is
Totally.
totally fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, other than that, man, season
Agreed.
one was cool. But yeah, let's you want to dive into season two? I know you did a
Let's
couple
dive
episodes
in.
already.
Yeah. Let's dive into season 2 and how we feel about that. I, for one, have been eager to talk to somebody else about it. And like, there's just so much that has gone on.
I know,
It's
and it's
nuts.
not a lot of people that jumped on this bandwagon, and I'm like, why not? I mean, it's a good story at the end of the day. I mean,
Hmm.
granted, like I said earlier, it's not the Tolkien legend, but at the end of the day, it's still a good show. So I'm gonna watch it.
Yeah.
And I also have an Amazon Prime account, so why not?
Exactly. Same here.
Like if it's there, I need it. I'm getting tired
I
of
like
Netflix.
Lord of the
Sorry.
Rings. Uh,
Yeah.
See, that's the crazy part for me. I don't know. Like, I know Lord of the Rings. I've read Lord of the Rings, the trilogy. I've did not read The Hobbit, but I know a
But
lot about The Hobbit.
did you at least
I
watch The
don't
Hobbit?
know
Like the Hobbit
anything.
trilogy?
I've seen the Hobbit trilogy,
Okay.
but I know like lore of The Hobbit besides for what the movies did.
Right.
Like, I don't know as much about the Simrad and this backstory that some people really do know, and it's crazy.
Yeah, I think this is one of those kind of legacy stories where it's like there's so much backstory, like, and
Hmm.
it goes beyond what we even know because obviously he's probably written down like just some minor backstory stuff to help transition into these other movies and books and so on and so forth.
Oh,
So
totally.
it's an expansive universe, man. At the end of the day, it's same as Lord of the Ring, or sorry, same as like Star Wars. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Same as Harry Potter. There's a lot of lore behind that too. So like all of
Yeah,
these fantasy stories have they need these foundational stories. You know what I mean? And we don't see them until years later, like in these TV shows. We get a
yeah,
taste of it, or we get like a little quick little throw-ins in some of the books and movies, and then it's kind of like a oh catch on for all the people that do know about the history, like oh cool, you know what I mean, little Easter egg.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, I mean, like I said, it's a good show. I ain't mad about it.
yeah. I've definitely been enjoying it. So we've seen up to episode 5 now. I
Hmm.
know I didn't do a review of season 4 Our episode 4 kind of got burned out in that first week.
You did
Oh,
3 in a week, man. Well, because they dropped 3 the
they
first
dropped 3
day,
the
right?
first
Yeah,
first day. So it was
yeah.
like bam, bam, bam. So
No, it was a lot to take in and a lot to like kind of put out there, but
yeah,
um yeah, I don't know. It's I think from where we started in season 2 to where we're at now, it's so much like I don't even know how to explain it. This person is trying to do like obviously we know Sauron is the guy who's
yeah.
making the rings, but it's crazy to think that he's utilizing his deceptive skills and his persuasiveness to make Celebrimbor, who's like this master forger, create
Mhm.
these things. And he's so smart. He thought of, hey, if we take Mithril and we take a strong ore that can like actually enhance the Mithril to a point where like I don't have to use as much. He's so smart to think that. Nobody would have thought that. Even Celebrimbor, who's this master forger, just had no idea. And he's like, nah, that wouldn't work. And then he tries and he's like, damn, you were right. So Sauron is a force to be reckoned with. Um, very smart, but very deceptive. Everything he's
Very
doing,
deceptive.
very deceptive. And then he's just so smooth on how he talks. You know what I mean? He has like this swag that's kind of like, I'm never gonna doubt you, you know.
Mm, mhm.
So like he rises to power, it seems like on his uh deception and how he can just convince people that,
Yeah.
we're doing the right thing when he knows it's not. You know what I mean?
Mm,
And
mhm.
I think my biggest thing right now was the first 3 rings. He made the first 3 rings perfect. They did what they were supposed to do. They made it to where the elves can
Mm.
thrive, right? So that was kind of like a, hey, I'm gonna make these right on purpose, just so we can make those next sets for the dwarves and the next set for man. And as we make those, we make them slightly more darker than the first set.
So I wonder, okay, with that, all right, 2 things before we get to that. How did you react to the uh what is it? In episode 2, he does like the whole fire stunt and changes his image,
That was kind of dope. I ain't gonna lie to you.
right?
Um, The first of all, the why though, and it's crazy for me that nobody knows what Sauron actually looked like.
Yeah.
So this man has been haunting Middle Earth, and no one knows what he looks like. So then Celebrimbor sees that change up and doesn't react to it and be like, "Oh, you're Sauron." Like, no, what's he call himself? He's got like Altair or something like that. Or it
It
starts with an
kills me.
A. He calls himself some other name with an A or something like that. It's not Sauron, obviously.
Oh yeah,
Um,
the website doesn't have his actual, it just has Sauron. It doesn't have the alter
like
name.
the
Yeah.
alternate name.
Yeah.
Because even
The
when he
gift
had the
giver,
brown hair,
the
yeah,
lord
the
of
gift giver,
gifts.
yeah. Well, the gift's my butt. Caught myself. Um, but yeah, that change up was really cool, and I didn't expect that at all because again, I was thinking people would have seen him. They were fighting a war with him.
Mhm.
So you would have thought somebody would have been like, "Oh, you're Sauron," obviously, right? No,
Yeah.
not at all. So that's kind of like a misstep for me, in continuity with the show, because it means like, well, was he always wearing that hood, or did he wear like that big, bulky black armor that we've seen, which it doesn't look like he did. He was just an
Yeah.
elf at that point. You know what I mean? He wasn't the Dark Lord Sauron that we knew in the Lord of the Rings trilogy. So, which is good to see that that's going to come at some point because we've been seeing bits and pieces of like the helmet,
Yeah.
and then the visions. That's been kind of dope.
Mhm. Definitely. Um, so question with the making of the rings. Did you pick up that he never touches the first set of 3?
I did see that. I
He
did see
never
that.
actually touches any part of it.
Hmm.
So is it perfect because he's never had any influence on it? And is that why the elves can actually resist the power more
Well,
than
I feel like they've always, even without the rings, I feel like elves are superior. I feel like in
Mhm.
Middle Earth, they're the obviously the longest living, the wisest, the strongest, the fastest, the keenest with the vision. They have in heightened skills, which make them almost feel like they're angelic, right? They're like the perfect beings. So I feel like the fact that with them being these perfect beings, they are least susceptible to being consumed by the darkness of these rings. But over time, I feel like we'll start to see that they do pick up some of that darkness. It just takes longer for it to kind of consume them. That's kind of how I'm looking at it.
Mm. See, I with the one elf, and it's not on the list of elves for the show.
You talking about the third guy that got the ring?
Yeah, the third guy that got the ring. I feel like he's in the show one to symbolize like a higher power elf that's not like the king. It's not one of the
Mhm,
major players, but he's a respectable guy that like Elrond can look up to
mhm.
and follow his lead. But at the same point, he seemed to be easily deceived by power. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
no,
he
he definitely
spins it
was
more of
after
like
that.
these are things of great power
Mhm.
and they need to be protected because of that. But at the same point, he's coming off to me like he's really deceived by this power. And he's like, yeah, elves are higher and nobler, but they are easily seduced by
Well,
great power.
speaking of the seduction of the elves, though, I mean, we already kind of had Sauron tell that to Galadriel in the first season. You know what I mean? He
Hmm.
was like, what was it? Uh, you've opened yourself up to darkness, seeking revenge for your brother.
Hmm.
So she probably has already been corrupted because she's been doing all this stuff in the sake of revenge, which isn't an elvish way. Obviously, they don't do that. They don't move that way.
Yeah.
So maybe it didn't seem as off to her because she's already in that darkness. Where this guy, power, who doesn't like power? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The fact that it didn't do anything for Gilgalad, though, the king of the elves, though, that was kind of weird for me. Because he you would think he'd be down for power too. You know, he's the
Yeah.
highest ruling elf, but it didn't seem that way. So it's good to see that there's some level-headedness in some of these elves. But at the
Hmm.
end of the day, the elves aren't perfect. We see them as perfect because of all these abilities they have, but they're not perfect.
Yeah.
And this is where we start seeing the decline of the elves, to where in Return of the King, they do go back to the Valor and completely leave Middle Earth at some point. So it is a downfall, that is starting to trickle through. So we're seeding. It's almost like a setting the seed for the future.
Future. Yeah.
Mhm,
Interesting. Yeah. Definitely. Um, what else do we got going on? We see the second ring get power. The second set of rings get
mhm,
made, and then episode 3, no, episode 4, it gets given
mhm.
to the dwarf
Yes.
king.
So
Episode
which
5, we really see him use it.
yeah, episode 5 was kind of
Yeah.
dope. That was before though. I think it's crazy to see the change in Durin, the youngest Durin, right?
Mhm.
Because he flip flops very quickly in this entire season, even in the first season too. He's quick to say, "We need to dig. We need to dig. We need to dig. We need to get me through." Blah blah blah.
Yeah.
His father's like, "No," and now that shift is changing to where now the youngest
Mm.
Durin is being more focused, and he's not as corrupted as his father is. So his father's saying, "Dig, dig, dig." You know, we saw the Balrog. I think it was in the first couple episodes or even in this last first season. So they're
Mhm.
digging too far. And again, this leads into the whole Casa Doom thing where we see Gandalf
Yeah.
falling off and fighting the Balrog. So it's really cool little Easter eggs, but it's again, it's showing like within 1,000 year span that this stuff is all trickling down to these ultimate events in the original trilogy that we've seen.
Yeah.
Um, but the dwarves, man, they live a really good life. They made the dwarven cities look cool as hell.
Oh my god.
They look so
The
cool.
first shot that we see of the dwarven cities, that cool ass like swoop down through and
Yeah.
see the light and realize like Khazad-dûm is not just like a mine. So that
No.
was one of the crazy things when you hear Gimli say it and they call it a mine.
Yeah.
Like now you get his emotion.
Mhm.
Like this is supposed to be amazing.
And, it's a
Also,
massive city.
see episode 5, seeing the door,
Yeah, you got the Door of Durin, that was
the
kinda
door
dope.
of Doran.
And
Oh,
then
that
he
was
even
cool.
did a little stick in there, he's like, "It'll only be open to the ones who are friends," and I'm like, "Oh, friends!"
Yeah.
I was over here like, "Man, lord."
Exactly. Yes. That was awesome. I did
Yeah.
love to
It's
see
crazy
that.
to think that that was actually put in post though, you know what I mean? Which is weird because
Mhm.
obviously in Lord of the Rings, we saw it would look like it was built onto the mountain, but this is a whole separate thing. So it was
Yeah.
separate and then gelled to the mountain afterwards, which is kind of cool that they can do that. But I'm assuming the dwarves have like obviously they can
They're
smelt
skilled.
they can smelt some rock there.
Yeah.
Smelt it.
They got abilities there.
Yeah. And it's also cool to see female dwarves
Yes,
there.
right? We get to see a female dwarf, and it's not just a man that has a beard
It's
or a woman that
so
has a
funny.
beard, so they look like a man.
Yeah, well, that's what they used to Gimli said that with, I think to Legolas in one of the movies. He's like, "Yeah, they
Yep.
used to say that dwarves just pop out of the ground, and then you couldn't tell the difference between a man and a woman because they all look the same."
Yeah.
But it's great to see that they made the, female dwarven woman look strong like the men.
Yes.
Not some, like, smaller version of them, like, they're built
No,
tough, you know
they're
what I mean?
jacked, they're
They're
built,
they're
they're
you know what I mean?
yeah,
They're sturdy. There's some
totally.
sturdy ones. Um, yeah, so I feel like just continuity wise, it's cool to see like this additional side of stuff that we didn't get to see before. Even I think episode 2 or 3, they show orc babies.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is one of the crazy things. It's like, okay, well, in Tolkien, how do orcs really go? Are they created? Are they like kind of like the mushroom babies? They're grown out of the ground. Like,
To be
how
honest with
does
you,
this all happen? And now we actually get babies.
yeah, and
Okay,
and affectionate orc fathers.
yeah,
He's over
one
here
that
like
actually cares
petting
about their
baby.
kid.
I mean, listen, look, it's cool, man. I mean, the orcs are humans, or orcs have feelings too, right?
Yeah,
But it's funny because I actually did think that orcs just came about from dead elves that just were kind of
hmm
like sulking into the
yeah.
ground after a while. Um, because I thought that's how they made the Urukai, right? Like,
That's
weren't they
I believe
out of
that's how you
clay?
make Urukai. Is they like see, I've heard two different things. One, orc is made by torturing an elf to the point that they're corrupted and become an orc.
Okay,
The other thing is that they infused like the elves and essentially like genesis them into the Urukai
okay.
with
Yeah, I
like
never figured
yeah.
that out.
I never really understood it, and in the trilogy we definitely get like the look of like, hey, they're being like birthed out of the ground
Mhm.
and they have to like do all of these things to like create them more than just like, okay, well, they're naturally born and reproduced and
Yeah,
all of that.
I mean, hey, man, get your rocks off. Anyway, get your orc on.
Get your orc on.
Get your work on. Um, but yeah, what else have we gotten so far? I'm
Totally.
trying to think what else. So we do see Sauron pushing the concept of the rings for men. Um,
Yes.
there's such a big pushback though from Celebrimbor, and it's like kind of odd because he was very quick to do it with the dwarves, who aren't far off from man. They're just short men with
Yeah.
beards. So, what do you think's the reason why?
I think because if you look at the Southlands was always looked at as being like corrupt and evil, and like you have elves that are looking over the Southland. They're not meant to like flourish there. They're just in place. to look over it, to make sure nothing happens. They're standing guard. They're watching over. They're
So
not
the
really like trying
elves
to
are big
help the
brother.
society to yeah, it's Big Brother kind of.
Yeah.
They're looking at them, watching them like that, which is kind of crazy because you have Numenor, which totally different vibe where it's like the elves have abandoned Numenor and left the men to their devices and nothing has gone wrong.
No, it's
Like
they've
this
been thriving.
is a great thriving society and everything is wonderful there, you
Mhm.
know. So why can you not like but I mean Sauron also says let's go to Numenor and find the 9 most like what how does he phrase it? Like the purest of heart of the
Yeah,
men,
something like that.
which we all know that's gonna be actually the 9 most corrupted
Yeah.
because we
Yeah.
know that in the end, like they're supposed to end up becoming the
Nazgul.
Nazgul.
Mhm.
Um, which I'm wondering, have we seen the leader of the Nazgul, which is supposed to be the Witch King? So who is that? And if we've seen them already, like which one of the men is going to become that?
Interesting. That's a
Right?
I didn't even think that far yet, man. I'm just like, who are the 9 first? That's what I wanna know. Who are the original 9?
I honestly don't know.
Well,
I
so
don't know the 9 like
one of the 9 is Isildur. That's a proven fact.
one of the
Um,
9 is Isildur.
one
Okay.
of the 9 is Isildur. The other 9, though, is where we're gonna have a problem. And now I'm wondering, is one of them his father?
Mm.
So Isildur's father is a prominent figure in Numenor. Um, so and he's a righteous man. I'm gonna be honest with you. Like that man,
Yeah,
he
totally.
lives, breathes Numenor. He fights for Numenor. He protects his people. He's super close with the queen. Which that's a whole nother story because Dad was kind of dirty. Um,
Mhm.
but he's very he's a righteous man. Like in episode 5, we're watching the transition between the queen and this new king. And you see how high regard the knights from Numenor hold Isildur's father. You know what I mean? They're like
Yeah.
captain, you know what I mean? And they're like the new people in charge are like, he's not a captain anymore. He's a captain of nothing if you're calling him a captain. And they're like, no, he's our captain. So he's walking away. He's telling them like, "Hey, yeah, listen, look, I'm not a captain anymore." And as he walks away, he's like, "Captain!" Everybody's cheering him and something like that. And
Yeah.
he's like, so he's very held in status wise in Numenor. Um, so he could be one. Other than that, that's my
Okay.
only 2 guesses right now. Because the one other person that I thought it could have been, something happened to him. I'm not gonna say. If you didn't see episode 5 yet, I'm not gonna say. But something happened to him. It's a curly haired guy that became a captain in the
Mm,
training,
mhm.
the dark skinned guy. I thought
Yeah.
he'd be one of them in feature, but yep, I was wrong. Anyway,
No.
yeah, not him, not him. Um,
Uh,
but the one thing I do want to talk about though is how well Numenor is parts of Rohan and parts of Gondor. If you noticed
oh,
in
yes.
there, it's so
Yes.
cool. This is where men come from, like civilized men. I'm gonna put
Mhm.
it like that because we have these
Yes.
little nomadic men running around, stuff like that. But civilized men of Gondor and Rohan, the uniforms from the soldiers mimic both of those
Perfectly. It's
perfectly.
brilliant.
It's so cool. And I was like, because you got the Gondorian's helmet where it's got like the big
Yep.
little, very like Greek like, and then
Mhm.
Rohirrim uniforms are almost kind of like these like pelt looking things all the way
Yeah.
around, and it's on the Numenor's armor. And I'm like, oh, that's fire. I like that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
And
saying?
especially you see when you see them in like cavalry form, you're
Yeah,
like, this is Rohan.
that's
Like
the Rohirrim.
these are the ancestors of the
Hmm.
Rohirrim. Ro-
Yeah,
yeah.
it's crazy.
It's just crazy.
That attention to
Agreed.
detail, and that's why people are like, "Why do you hate the show? It's still tying into the original stuff that we've seen, so enjoy it. Just shut up and watch it." You know? Just shut up and watch the show.
Absolutely. I feel like season 2 is way more enjoyable than season 1.
I
Season
agree.
1 was okay at first,
Mhm.
became really good at the end.
Slow and steady wins the race, bro.
But it was like a like, all right, this is the universe. It kind of feels like the universe, but it's not everything we know. I don't know where I am and what's going on and how is everything happening and what's going on here. Even like, I'm sure we'll talk about the stranger and who he really is soon enough,
Mhm.
but like, even like with him and trying to figure out like who Sauron is in the show, they were keeping like that all quiet until the very end.
Yeah, which
And
I
then
was surprised that that
most of
dropped
the way
so
through the show,
early.
you thought the stranger was Sauron. Like, that was
Mhm.
the reincarnation. It was kind of crazy.
The way that they had the, what was it? The followers of the other wizard,
Mhm.
I forgot his name,
Of the Dark
um,
Wizard.
of
Yeah,
the
they
Dark
don't
Wizard,
name him.
yeah.
They just call
They
him the
don't
Dark Wizard.
yeah, it's weird. But yeah, they were putting it as, "Hey, you're Sauron," and the crazy part is the guy believed it. The stranger believed it, you know? He
Mhm.
was doing stuff that he couldn't control, and it was always in a negative way, nothing in a positive. Except later down the line, like if he did a spell, he thought he broke the tree, but in theory, he opened it up for life, which was kind of
Yeah.
dope. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, I'm
Definitely more interesting as we get into season 2, and they kind of like, I feel like it did like a 180 and was like, okay, this is too abstract to Lord of the Rings, and now in season 2, we're gonna shove Lord of the Rings down your throat. Like,
yeah, no, it's
we're
definitely
gonna
getting
give
there.
you truly like Numenor and like really seeing how this is like the ancestors of men
Mhm.
and seeing all of it, and we're gonna give you more of that interaction. We're gonna give you more of this interaction between the dwarves and the elves. Like, the first couple episodes were all elves, and then all
Yeah,
of a sudden it was like, nope, we're gonna focus on everyone else.
yeah.
This is all about the dwarves. This is all about the men.
Mhm. Now, my
Yeah,
only issue with the show is we figured out who Sauron was literally at the end of season one. This show is slated for 5 seasons.
it is 5 seasons.
It's
Okay.
it's it's going to be 5 seasons long. We are in season two. We already made the second batch of rings. Where do you think this is gonna go in regards to like stretching it out 5 seasons long? Because like at this point, we get the rings. We know things start to kind of start boiling down. Sauron takes over Mordor, blah blah blah. But how much can you put story wise in 3.5 more seasons when we already know who the antagonist is?
Uh, yeah, it's interesting because I've been wondering that too. I've been sitting there thinking like, how many seasons is this really going to play out? Because I feel like they're going to give us making the humans rings in this season,
Yeah, like
especially after episode 5.
I
Uh,
see. Yeah, definitely them getting
the
the
way
rings
episode
made.
5 went.
Yeah, because they're very like now it's on the side. Like Celebrimbor was at first no, and at the end of that episode, he was like, "Sure, let's do it." You know, it's like, come
Yeah,
on, bro. Like in a matter of 30 minutes of the episode, you flip your mind like that. Then again, that shows the persuasion of Sauron and how devious
exactly.
he is. You know, um,
So
but
I
yeah,
feel like we're going to get the 9 rings of men in this season. I don't think they're going to be given to men
no,
until next season, maybe.
mm,
So that's third season. I think we're going to see the one ring maybe be forged in the next season, if not season 4.
mhm.
So that way, season 5 is all about the war.
I think I also yeah, so season 5 is definitely gonna be the war. We see that coming. But there's
Yeah.
a lot of time between Isildur now to
Hmm.
Isildur being the guy who cuts the ring off. We don't
Yeah.
have a Gondor. We don't have a Rohan. And in theory, Isildur's father is the first king of Gondor, which we
Yeah.
don't have. So I think that that story of him leaving Numenor and taking his knights with him to make Gondor is definitely a part of the story coming in. We've gotten some teases into some of the cities of Gondor. So I know they said
Yeah.
Minas Tirith, they said Osgiliath a couple times. So like those parts are already there, but they're uninhabited. So
Yeah.
will Numenor and Isildur's father start inhabiting those areas to build Gondor because uh what's the name of the city for Gondor? I forgot. It's got the seven rings. Um I I had it too. It's Minas something.
Minas Tirith?
Is it Minas Tirith? Yeah, I think it
Is
is.
it Minas Tirith?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
It's
they
Minas
have
Tirith, and then there's the river city that's
that's Osgiliath.
Ascilia, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So they mentioned that already. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, I think that we're gonna take those parts over. He's going to become king. Isidore is going to be found because they're going to have to go back. So Isidore is going to be found, and then
Yeah.
we're going to start leading into like, okay, here's the story of how men inhabited Middle Earth and stayed there up until that war at the end of the age.
Yeah.
So I think that'll fill in some of the gaps. But again, there's a lot that's got to get filled within three and a half episodes or 3.5 seasons.
I think men are getting kicked out of Numenor this year,
Mm. Oh
this
yeah,
season.
I think it's already
I
happening.
I think I think that's going to be the end of this season is they're getting on the boats and they're heading to Middle Earth.
And I think, I mean, this will probably also showcase the fall of Numenor.
Yeah.
Oh shoot, completely. Sorry. We'll completely see Numenor face wiped off the face of this area because not
Yeah.
apparently they don't consider that Middle Earth. That's not considered Middle Earth.
No, it's so far out in the ocean.
It's so far in
It's
the
out in
ocean.
the
Yeah.
middle of the ocean. It's the closest thing to the Valor.
Hmm.
Like
So yeah,
they're actually like the gatekeeper to the Valor or something. Like they can see the gate to the Valor at the top of the mountain.
that's why it looks so damn nice. Oh my god,
Yeah.
looks. It reminds me of like ancient Greece.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. They have this very like this is like ancient Greece and we're going to get more into like medieval kind of aesthetic soon.
Yeah, I think that's something that's been kind of dope to see, considering um I'm not considering because like in our timeline, you know what I mean, ancient civilization to the dark age and knights and all that stuff. So
Yeah.
that's gonna be cool to see that transition. I like how they're doing that.
Yeah.
Because even you could see the boats, the way that the Numerian boats were, they were built just like Greek ships.
Yeah.
Um and the elves for me feel like the Romans, you know, it's kind of like these
Mm,
very uptight, regal kind of beings and stuff like that. So I like how they're pulling in from like ancient civilizations as well, but still keeping it Lord of the Rings. You know,
yeah.
I don't
Well, it
know
has
what.
to have a basis in something.
Yeah, yeah, no, sure. I don't know what to consider the dwarves, man. And they might be some Germanians or something like that. Like they're
Yeah. Well, I think the dwarves are just they're that geometric earth kind of everything's geometric and mountain and sharp edges
Mhm.
and those rigid shapes
Yeah,
uh that they create. So it's definitely interesting. Um how are you feeling about everything going on with like the stranger and like I definitely had a moment where I was like, I know who it is
so
kind
I
of thing.
kind of I knew he was a wizard. I know when they
Yeah.
were trying to make us feel like it was Sauron, I wasn't biting. I was like, "Nah, bro, there's no way. There's
Yeah.
no way." Sauron would be nowhere near hobbits, bro. I'm just gonna be honest with you. They had no civilization. Well, not to say they don't have a civilization, but they're split. They're split into two different groups. You know, you got
Yeah.
nomadic hobbits, and then you have the ones that stayed and waited until they got word that they found the Shire. Um, so there's just two groups right now, so they wouldn't be over there. But to even find out that there's additional wizards, which is kind of cool because a lot of people didn't know that it wasn't just Gandalf and Sauron. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
there's Radagast the Brown, and then there was another one. I forgot what the other guy was. There was 4. So it's great to see that this guy that we see is like Gandalf, right? Gray cloak, which is very reminiscent of that. You got the guy, the Dark Lord or the Dark Wizard. He's in all white, like Sauron. You got the guy in brown that they meet up by the tree. He's Radagast the Brown. You know, so it's cool to see that.
He's not.
No, I'm saying he's not Radagast.
Yeah. He's Tom Bombadil.
Yeah, Tom.
Yeah, he's Tom Bombadil, which deep lore people know Tom Bombadil and are like, oh my god, I don't know him that well, but I do know that Tom Bombadil is supposed to be like the first E-Star, the first wizard that comes to Middle Earth. And
I mean, he did say he was alive for like ages.
Yeah.
So,
and like his journey was to actually like create and flourish the world. Gandalf, I'm gonna call him Gandalf because he's Gandalf. You literally have the scene where he's looking at the tree and wants to take like the branch. He wants to take a branch off of an ant. Like, so the first ants we see in the show, the first ant we see is just kind of like hanging out in the middle of the desert, like you know, and he wants to take a branch off of him, and it swallows him. Like,
and it swallows him. That was cool. That was cool.
Like, I'm gonna eat you now.
Thanks for trying to take my branch, but no.
And then Tom's like, if you would have asked him, he would have given it to you.
I'm trying to think. Where do you think that's going? Because he's saying, or apparently the prophecy is he's the one that is to kill Sauron. But we all know that that's not the case. So where's this guy at?
I feel like he's meant to fight. I don't think it's meant to like kill, but I think he's meant to fight.
Okay.
And I think he was like, all right. So when we hear Tom talk to him, and it's like, well, what is my mission? Well, your mission is tied to Sauron, and it's tied to the Dark Wizard. I feel like what's going to happen is he's going to go either in this season or in the next season. He's going to go to the Dark Wizard and instead of try to kill the Dark Wizard, bring him around. Because we know that Gandalf and Saruman become like the two big wizards and rule kind of over all of the wizards.
Yeah.
You know, Saruman builds his tower, and like that's where wizards go to study and learn, and there's supposed to be a repository of information and all there. So I feel like he's going to draw him out of being like a dark wizard and show him like the light, because that's what Gandalf does. Gandalf is meant to show the light.
I was kind of looking forward to a Gandalf and Sauron like fight, man, but yeah. I mean, we may still get
a fight, but it might be more of like, I'm going to fight you to submission. Not to like, I'm gonna kill you.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Oh, man. I that was cool. And then this like area that they're going to, Rune. I meant to look at the map and see exactly where Rune was, but from what I heard, Rune is not far from the Shire. So we may also have the hobbits find their home at some point.
Yeah.
That's gonna be cool to see like the hills again. And we're like, oh god.
Yeah, see the hills, and then they'll be like, yeah, we can live here.
Yeah, because there's pictures of it. They have drawings of it. So somebody has been there. The problem is they can't find it. And the problem is they're also so dang short that walking for them is like taking them years to do.
Years to do it, yeah.
You know what I mean?
And then they're just wandering around now because they either have lost their way home or... See, I feel like they found it and they were trying to go back to get them. And that's where they got lost.
Yep. Yeah.
And from that point, they got lost, and it's just, we're going to wander. That was also the point where, like, okay, he's definitely Gandalf. He's hanging around with hobbits. Like,
And then it's funny
you're
because
literally giving us Gandalf without saying it's Gandalf.
it literally reminds me of Gandalf, Frodo, and Sam. So
Sam, exactly.
the stranger, Nori, and Poppy, like they're almost identical.
And I would really like to know what is the actual lineage of Frodo and Sam, and see if that is the lineage. And if it is,
Mm,
that's deeper metaphor, and like he's always drawn to this family.
So Brandyfoot, I don't know if they have. I mean, they probably would have a tie, but one of them is Poppy Peregrine or something like that, and then you have
Yeah.
Nori Brandyfoot.
Which Pappy Peregrine, that sounds like uh
Pippin, right?
uh Pippin, yeah, right?
Yeah. No, Brandybuck and Took.
Took
So
Took
Mary
is,
Took, and then no, Mary Brandybuck, and the other one was Took. Yeah, I forgot his first name now. Pippin
and
Took or something like that.
Samwise Gamgee is Sam.
Sam. Yeah. So Gamgee was the last name. Samwise.
Frodo Baggins. So
Yeah.
I mean,
So we
they're
haven't gotten
also
those names
women,
yet.
so at some point their names could change.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like their last name could change.
Yeah. We may see a few of them at some point, which would be kind of dope. Little Easter egg.
Hmm.
And you'd be like, oh, so you're the great grandfather of so and so. You know what I mean? That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah.
Well,
And we
we're
see the
talking
line.
more than great grandfather. We're talking like 10 greats,
Well, I mean,
right?
don't
We're
hobbits
talking about
also live longer than like humans do?
no. So apparently 111 was a long time for Bilbo right before he left to the elves. So he was
Yeah.
111 years old. That was a long time for them. They were like, bro, how are you still alive? There's no way. I would see them pretty much living now almost the same amount of time as what a man would be, if not
Okay.
maybe a little bit more. So you're thinking what 80s, maybe 90s, but 111, that's pushing it.
Yeah.
Plus, you gotta remember too that with them being so tiny, they're easy prey.
They are easy prey. But that's why
They
they hide so well.
they do hide so well. There was a couple times where they just got away from just standing still,
Yeah. Stand still in this bush. Nobody has a clue. You're right there.
like hide in the bush by standing up.
Yeah.
Uh,
Uh,
but overall, man,
there's a couple of scenes that are crazy.
yeah, no, I mean, this season looks like it's gonna be promising. Definitely better than the first season. We got 3 more episodes left.
3 more episodes. Yeah.
It's
8 episodes.
so sad that it's only 8 episodes, man. I get so into these shows. Can I get 24 episodes again? Nah, that's probably too much.
Give us a full TV show that's a whole year TV show. Yeah.
I mean,
That'd be
if
fantastic.
it's interesting because now we're getting so we have the TV show, we have the movie that's getting in production right now.
Yeah.
The Hunt for Gollum, which is
Call 'em.
interesting. That's actually even a thing. Um, and now, is that picked up by Amazon as well? Is that the license from for Amazon? So is Amazon making this
I
movie?
think it is Amazon making the movie. Yeah.
See, yeah. See that's where it would probably get weird for me, considering we know what happens to Gollum, um, from between the Hobbit to the Fellowship of the Ring. We know what happens. He goes into hiding, blah blah, and then
This
gets.
is afterwards, I believe.
Oh, this is after.
This is after. It's not
Oh,
boring. So this is,
oh.
as far as I understood, the search for Gollum is supposed to be a post Lord of the Rings.
But why is it even a big deal? No, Gollum dies into the fire.
Then why are they searching for Gollum?
So it's got to be in between The Hobbit and Fellowship of the Ring. See, this is where it starts to get weird for me because there's
Then that
no
makes
need for
no
that.
sense. You wouldn't have any major characters searching for Gollum because Gollum just kind of hit off.
Right, he hit off, and then he got right in the Fellowship of the Ring.
Yeah,
We find out that he was kidnapped by the Morgals,
yeah,
uh, and he was being detained, and that's when he said for Baggins Shire, and then they
yeah,
let him go.
exactly.
So we know what happens to him. Who the heck is looking for this guy, and why? You know. So that's where it's getting a little weird for me. I think they're pushing things a little too much.
Yeah.
That
Or
that's
unless
probably
it's a tandem to the Lord of the Rings and it's going on while everything else is going on. And even and then, like, who's your characters going to be because your main characters are all
they're on
off
another quest.
doing things.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like we don't get Gollum until Two Towers
yeah,
fully because he was in that one
exactly.
scene. So it's like they knew he was there. So if they knew he was there, then they would know people were following him if they were searching
Mhm.
for him. It's like it's kind of I don't know, doesn't make sense for me. I feel like we can leave that alone. Give me something else. Give me
Yeah,
more
give me
backstory of
afterwards.
yeah, give me how the elves and men made Numenor, or give me something like that. Show me the valor. I want to see the valor. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Like we haven't seen that. I want to see where else. I mean, well, I guess we kind of did see a little bit of it.
Yeah, in the
Like
very beginning,
very beginning when
like,
Galadriel was talking about her brother and they were in like this like
yeah.
grassland area. But yeah.
So it's definitely interesting. I definitely think we are headed this the end of the season is going to see the men leaving Numenor. I think we're going to I have a feeling that we're going to see the rings being made.
Hmm.
One of the other things that I think was interesting that we haven't seen yet, and I thought we would, is we never seen any of these legendary weapons made. So that might be something that's like
Mm.
for season 3,
Yeah, yeah.
where like they're trying to make these weapons to now actually fight back. Uh,
Mm.
and that's when we're going to get uh Gandalf's sword and uh Nazgul, not Nazgul, right? Um, I forget Aragon's sword's name. Uh, and we'll
Oh,
get like Sting and all of that. Like I feel like that stuff's going to be made in the next season, and we're
that
gonna see
that could be cool. I mean, it'd be
that
cool
kind of
little
thing.
Easter eggs, even if it isn't made for that particular area or like for that particular show. Like if
Yeah,
they just mention it, like, "Hey, we made a sword out of Mithro that tells you where Orcs is." You know what I mean? Just kind of like little things like that. And then I'd
exactly.
be like, "Oh, they made Sting," which kind of goes back to the rings because in the last episode we see that the ring has the invisibility thing to it.
Yes,
So that was a play on the final ring that Sauron
ring.
makes. So he's probably trying to like tamper with it to see what he can do ability wise with these rings.
Hmm.
So yeah, we're starting to see that too, which is kind of cool.
Which also lends to when Gandalf later on says, invisibility rings are like a dangerous thing,
Hmm.
meaning that there's more than one of these invisibility rings, and like where do these powers come from
Yeah, they must
and
have
what
been
they
from the
can
rings that
do.
the dwarfs had.
Yeah,
Mhm,
it must be different rings that the dwarves had or different rings that the men come to have and all of that.
mhm.
Um, Interesting. So
Yeah,
I'm
but
eager to see the rest of the season and where we end off.
yeah, yeah, no, for sure. We got 3 episodes left, and I'm excited. I just hate that it's every week. I want them every day. Give it to me now. I don't wanna wait no
See
more.
now.
Uh, yeah, you know how we get.
See
We
now.
start getting too into it, and we're just like, "Nah, man, I need that, like, yesterday."
Totally. Yeah.
So, but yeah, 3 more
Oh, that was the
episodes,
great thing on the first week. It was just like, okay, 3 episodes. Here we
3
go.
episodes. They gave me everything. I was like, "Yes." And actually, I had just finished season 1 because I had never watched it, and I was like, "I finally can get a chance to watch it now." And I watched it and I was like, "Oh, season 2 starts in, like, 2 days." Yeah.
Yes.
So it worked out. I was kinda, like,
It
fresh
also
in my
kind of
mind.
broke my anytime a show gives you like more than one episode right away, I usually feel and think pre going into it that the first episode's gonna suck
Mhm.
because it needs a second episode to support it.
And then you get into a
You know,
3rd episode.
it's like Andor. You needed all 3 episodes to actually support it, and once you
Yeah.
get to the third one, you're like, okay, they're not bad.
Yeah.
Like it
It's
needs
a
one
it's
whole
just a
story.
really big story that they had to tell, and they don't wanna split
I
up.
think all 3 episodes could stand on their own, and if you released them week after week, it would have just been fine.
I'm
Like
not complaining them. I'm not
I'm not
complaining.
complaining we got all 3 right away.
I got all
But
3, and I was like,
they
"I should have
stood on
became
their
a
own
story."
and they were great. I think
Yeah.
every episode has stood on its own and has been extremely interesting so far. So I am very, I think everything's going great with the season so far. It's like, 4 out of 5 stars for me right now.
Yeah, I'm
They're
not.
hitting everything.
It's better than some shows we've seen, man. And this is,
Hmm.
like I said, it's not a bad show. It's a good show. Does it have some things that are issues? Sure, but what doesn't have issues? Everything's got
Yeah.
issues. I've got issues. Right? It's cool. Yeah. So just go along for the ride. Enjoy the show. Watch the old movies again because I actually wound up planning on doing a run through of the first 3 movies just to see like the little things like, oh, this is what they were talking about back then. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So once this season's over, I'm going to do that and run through maybe that
See
and Hobbit.
see everything connected. Yeah.
Yeah, because it still is connected in a way, even though it's not what Tolkien wanted. Amazon's doing a great job and still keeping things consistent for the most part. So
Exactly.
tune in, watch it, and let us know what you guys think.
Last thoughts, George?
No, I need my next episode now. But until then, if you guys watch this, let us know what you guys think about season 2 or season 1, and we'll go ahead and talk about it in our next episode.
Yeah, absolutely. Give us a like, follow us, put in the comments what you are liking and what you are not. Watch these episodes, pull that seat up to the table. Welcome to the table. Peace.
Deuces.